Hey everyone, and welcome back to Strange Minds 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we're going to be getting back into Superstitions, a handbook of folklore, myths, and legends from around the world by D.R. McElroy. But before we begin, I would like to say I hope that everyone is doing good, and I hope that you guys are liking this series from this book. And if you have any recommendations for any other books, please comment them down below and I'll do my best to see if I can find them. But without further ado, if you can hit that like button if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It would mean a great deal to me. And without further ado, my dear friends, sit back, relax, or grab a snack, and let's get to it. Europe. Readers of this book will likely be most familiar with European culture. The imperialism of European countries ushered in the Age of Discovery, which spread white Christian beliefs around the world, often with brutal imposition of those beliefs upon the local populace. The effects of such practices led to the homogenization of many unique cultures and the destruction of a number of others. So, while European mythology has benefited from exposure to many and varied religions and cultures, much of the variety of originality of those same cultures has disappeared altogether. Still, European mythology remains the source of most familiar tales and traditions in Western civilization. Of all continents we've looked at so far in this book, perhaps none is quite so familiar as the mythology of Europe. The most powerful and iconic of evil beings find their origins in the folklore and religions of this long-settled region. Europe can be broadly divided into Western and Eastern halves, with Eastern Europe dwarfing its Western cousin in both land and area and total population. Eastern Europe, however, is one of the very few areas of the world that actually is experiencing negative population growth. Eastern Europe. The heavy hitter in terms of both size and population here is Russia. While 2/3 of the landmass of Russia sits physically on the Asian continent, 2/3 of the population resides in the smaller portions of the country that sits on the European continent. For this reason, Russia is considered to be a European nation. Thus, Russia's contribution to the mythology and folklore of the entire continent of Europe cannot be overstated. Russian folklore basically has two major influences: the pagan religious beliefs and superstitions of the ancient Slavic peoples, as well as the stories and beliefs that arose following the adoption of Orthodox Christianity and or Roman Catholicism. The Slavs were semi-nomadic people of the steppes who were divided into tribes, in each the same way as peoples of North America, based on religious beliefs, the practices, as well as cultural differences. Uncovering the mythologies of the Slavs is difficult since the tribes were historically illiterate. Instead, passing along their knowledge and stories through oral tradition, what has been written down may be greatly changed by the filter of Orthodox Christianity that the scribes and priests practiced. Slavic religions all seem to be based in the same general polytheistic paganism that was shared across the prehistoric peoples of Europe. The differences were usually localized and typically resulted in different gods from the mutual pantheon being given prominence by various tribes. The Slavs eventually became clustered under three broad categories: Eastern Slavs, Russians, Belarusians, and Ukrainians; Western Slavs, Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, and Sorbs; the Southern Slavs, Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, and Bulgarians. Eastern European gods and goddesses. Because of the extent period of human habitation and the frequent intermingling of tribes, Eastern European gods and goddesses have multiple names and talents. Belobog, Slavic god of goodness, light, and luck and happiness. He is the white god to Chernabog's black god moniker. The two are locked in eternal combat for the kingship of the universe. Chernabog. Originally a minor deity, Chernabog grew in notoriety to become the god of evil. Chernabog became evil when he succumbed to the temptations of the world. His mind was overtaken by injustices of life and by the depression and anger that resulted. He was known for murdering people by smashing in their heads with his huge hammer. He is also called the Black God because of his evil and because he turned himself into a giant black serpent and slid over the earth, corrupting the hearts of men. This act began the War of Varag. Desbug. Desbug is one of the three members of the Triglav, the Slavic Holy Trinity, together with Peron and Varag. The Triglav has three silver heads, stacked one atop the other, representing sky, the earth, and the underworld. Desbug was created by Varag to aid in the gods' battle against the evil Chernabog, sometimes referred to as Varag's son. He is god of solar heat, the fire of heaven, the rain, and the underworld. In a number of Slavic languages, Dazd or Daz means rain. He is also the founder of the Slavic peoples, Southern Southern Slavs, especially Serbs, refer to Desbug as Lame Daba, who is depicted as an old man who wears a bear skin and leans on a staff. Lame Daba is nearly always in the company of a wolf, and the wolf is sacred to Serbs. To Christian Serbs, Lame Daba is an evil god of the underworld, akin to Satan. Doola, goddess of rain and wife of Peron. She brings about rain by milking her heavenly cows, causing the milk to fall upon the earth. She is tricked by Velis, who is jealous of Peron and wants whatever the god has, into sniffing a lily of the valley blossom, whereupon she immediately falls unconscious. She spontaneously gives birth to a son, and since Velis has no wife or children, he decides to take the boy and raise him as his own. When Peron learns of this, he wages war against Velis for 3 days and 3 nights, finally emerging victorious. Afterwards, he banishes Velis to the underworld, where Velis becomes a giant serpent. Domovoi and Kikimora. These are male and female, respectively, house spirits, similar to brownies and gnomes of Western European myth, which resides in human homes. These spirits are not inherently good or evil, but their cooperation can generally be secured by respecting them and giving them small offerings of food and cloth. They, in turn, will keep lesser malevolent spirits away and keep the household running smoothly. Horse. Horse is an Eastern Slavic deity, god of the winter sun. He may have originated from contact with Turkish and Iranian peoples, as his name stems from an old Persian word meaning sun. It was believed that Horus was killed each spring by Chernabog and replaced with the summer sun. He rose again when the short days of winter returned. Koshchi, the immortal. More of a Russian demigod than a god, Koshchi is immortal because his vulnerable soul is hidden inside a needle, which is inside an egg, which is inside a rabbit, which is locked inside an iron chest, which is buried beneath an oak tree, which grows on an island. In other words, good luck killing this guy. He enjoys riding his horse around naked and kidnapping women. Krimara, also Krimata, Lithuanian. Krimara is the god of butchering pigs. He teams up with the god of nurturing baby pigs to ensure that the animals are healthy and happy when he cleanly and humanely butchers them. Mokosh, or also known as Mokos, Mokusa, Makosh. Makosh is the earth goddess herself, Mother Nature. She may also have been responsible for protecting women, especially those in labor, and for sponsoring the feminine arts of spinning, weaving, and sewing. Morana. Morana is the goddess of winter and death. During the celebration of spring, an effigy of Morana was ritually burned and or drowned to end winter and usher in the season of rebirth. Peron. The second of the two primary Eastern Slavic gods, Peron was constantly enraged by Veli's actions and spent much of his time trying to kill Velis with lightning bolts. Peron's name means lightning in various Slavic languages. Peron is god of the sky and master of wind, fire, and lightning. He allegedly wielded an axe that would return to his hand boomerang style after it was thrown. It is interesting to note that a number of Slavic myths have similarities to Nordic myths, such as the boomerang weapons of Thor and Peron. It is possible that these mythologies were spread through contact with or even evolution from far-ranging Celtic tribes, Keltoi, to the Greeks, whose archaeological remains have been discovered as far away as China. Samodiva, also Samovila, Vila, Vela. Samodiva are the fairy folk of Serbian and Bulgarian folklore. The Vila, Samodiva, is a beautiful fairy maiden who acts as the go-between the fairy realm and mortal men. She may ask the hero who contacts her in order to test his valor. It is she who leads the other Vile, plural for Vila, to their dances and protects them from harm, sometimes using her power over fire. Those who witness the dancing often fall under its spell and join in, only to perish from exhaustion before the coming dawn. The origins of the Vile may be in Thrace, an ancient land north of Greece, whose people would have been in contact with the Slavs. Vile are typically described as beautiful women with long blonde hair. Samar. Samar was an Eastern Slavic deity and god of grain, especially barley, which is grown to make beer. He may have originated from contact with Turkish and Iranian peoples, and his name can be translated as barley or harvest. He was also created by Varag to aid in the war against Chernabog. He is usually depicted as a dog or sometimes a lion, with wings. See an entry under the Zoria, which is on the next page. Svanevit. Svanevit is a four-faced god of war, abundance, divination, and fertility. Is a well-known god of Western Slavs and possibly Ukraine as well. Each face represents one of the cardinal directions north, east, south, and west. Varag. Varag is the creator god, depending on the researcher, and top god of the Slavic pantheon. He is described as the assistant to the creator god Rod. Varag is the personification of the sky and the fire that is originated there. He is the archetype blacksmith, like the Roman Vulcan, but in the sky rather than the underworld. Son of Varag. It is generally attached to the names of children who are named for someone still living, though not always someone who is related to the children. The Vile. Slavic fairies are wicked little creatures who can allegedly kill a person by causing him to dance to death. They are even known to tickle people so long that they die of asphyxiation due to laughing. Even their screams could kill. Velis. One of two major Eastern Slavic gods, Velis was a serpentine beast of underground origin, who was said to rule the earth, water, and magic. He was devious, but not exactly evil. With a taste for stealing the possessions of his nemesis, Peron, Velis was also the guardian of cattle. Yarilo, or Yarovit. Slavic patron god of the harvest, vegetation, and fertility. He was the son born to Doola, Peron's wife, when Velis tricked her into sniffing the lily of the valley flower. The kidnapping of Yarilo was the cause of Velis to be banished from the heavens to the underworld. The Zoria. These are the 3 star sisters. They are Slavic goddesses of the sun, each with her own duty. Zoria Utrenyaya is goddess of the dawn who lets the sun out of Desbug's home each day to make its trip across the sky. Zoria Vichirnaya is goddess of the evening who closes the door behind the sun after it returns home at sunset. Zoria, the Nameless, is the embodiment of midnight. In addition to their sun duties, the Zoria must carefully guard the fierce dog that is imprisoned in the constellation Ursa Minor. The dog, or sometimes a bear, is Samar in his animal form. He strains against the chains in order to be free to wreak havoc across the universe. And that, my dear friends, is where we're going to leave it. The next chapter is going to be Eastern European mythical monsters. But I hope that you all enjoyed this story. I know I may have butchered some of the names a little bit. With that, I do apologize, but I hope that besides that, you guys enjoyed it and maybe learned a little bit of the past. And without further ado, my dear friends, may you have a wonderful morning, noon, afternoon, evening, or night whenever this video reaches you. And this has been Ruby, signing off.